Hi, good afternoon, SPU 101 class. I'm sorry that this video is just getting out. There's been an error going on with the system that I use to record everything, so hopefully this will work this time. But where I wanted to start with is where we left off last class. We were discussing the Oakdale Early Intervention System and the discrepancy that was going on between what the program was doing and then what the goals and objectives are that were set up for those children based on a multidisciplinary team. So I left off talking about how, yes, activity-based approach is excellent, but it needs to be within a system, because how do I know which interventions I should be working on, what domains I should be focusing on, without some type of comprehensive system approach? So really this is looking at, and very similar to what you've been learning in the 201 class last semester, and that is where we are looking at the screening. Many of you guys know this as child find. Then from screening, if the child does, it is determined that the child does have some type of deficits, where we do more of a formal assessment. So those assessments can look very different based on the needs of the child. From those assessments, we are then able to develop a goal. This is where we look at what are the goals that we want to set up and then put in place. These goals are then placed in an IFSP, and then we can do the interventions that are based on those goals. The intervention is still following the child's lead, still focusing on the domains, because that's what all the goals are focusing on. And then based on those interventions, we're constantly progress monitoring to see if the intervention is working and if the goals are appropriate, and we're constantly going back and reassessing. So I want to look at these systems. I'm not going to do all of this, but I want to first talk about the screening portion. So screening is very typically informal. So a local library can do the screening, or when parents take their child to the doctor's office, they typically do an informal screening where the parents will complete some type of form that just lists like either on a Likert scale or a yes or no. Now I'm going to be bringing in my son and we're going to look at some videos. Now we just moved here, so this house is slightly disastrous because we were redoing everything. But my son here, let me just bring this up right now. My son is 3 years old in this video. At 3 years old, when we're looking at milestones, which I know is part of Dr. Geringer's class, but really by the age of 3, children should be using at least 3 to 5 word phrases. Now, based on this, if I were to take Mitchell into the doctor and he was to, yes, do a well visit, make sure that physically he was performing well, they would also be looking at and doing a screening. So we're going to kind of do a screening based on what you all hear with Mitchell's language skills at this point. Remember, he is, and let's be, I think he is 3 years and 5 months at this stage. So let me just play this short clip.
Yes, what's on your shirt?
Right. Now, physically, obviously, he's fine. His gross motor coordination's good. Okay, Dad said clap his hands. He stomped his feet. He's 3.5. We'll give him, we'll give him some room for improvement here. But typically, what you're seeing is he was able to say cheese, but really the rest of when he was trying to communicate, it was very much, you really couldn't understand what he was saying. He was doing a thread of syllables, but it had no meaning whatsoever. I'm going to go ahead here for a second. So by 3.5, I think we made out school, jump, somewhat of a dinosaur, but really that was mostly it. So based on the screening that I went to at my doctor's office, he was saying, you know what, milestone-wise, he is really not where he needs to be. We need to move to the assessment piece, where we now do more of that formal assessment. We're going to be looking at the assessment in class on Monday. But based on that assessment, they were able to establish, you know what? He is more than 2 standard deviations where he should be communication-wise, looking at that specific domain. And because of that, we need to put in place goals so that he can develop his communication skills. And then once we have those goals, we will start to provide interventions based on the goals developed on the IFSP. Now, the intervention, they were all activity-based interventions. So that's what I want to show you right now. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this whole intervention approach. So I had talked about that Mitchell, just going to informal screenings at the doctor's office, had been noted that there were, that he was not meeting the milestones communication-wise. I ended up putting a referral. He was formally assessed. It showed, yes, that he was more than 2 standard deviations below where he should be. So they created some goals, which I'll be showing you again on Monday, and then intervention. And intervention was all based on activity-based approach, following the child's lead. So let me show you how informal this is, but you're really just taking into account every single thing that the child does in a normal routine. I will show you things that I did well, and then I will show you things that I did incorrectly, and we'll be talking about that in class. So here's little Mitchell again. He's been just started receiving intervention, and you can see that he loves these little things. He also has a love of Elmo, and he wore these everywhere he went. So let me just show you some things that we did to help him with his communication.
Who's that? Hi, buddy. Hey, Mitchell. What do you have in your hand?
It's a
A giraffe and who else? Who's on your feet, Mitchell?
So he's done. So I really shouldn't be following him about who's on your feet, because that is not following the child's lead. All right, so here's where I am using more of that activity-based approach, following the child's lead. He is very much into Barney at this time, so I'm using that to help with his communication.
Here, so that you can see yourself, okay? It's a camera. Camera. Good job. Can you say hi?
So notice I just didn't let him get away with kaba, haka kaba. I repeated, yes, it's a camera. Can you say camera? And then if he tried it, then it was good job.
Good job. You want to see Barney? Who else is on Barney? Is BJ on Barney?
All right, here is another. By the way, he is wearing an apron because we were just cooking. I normally did not trust him in aprons. Anyway, following his lead, he was done cooking. He helped out and he cleaned up. He still had to do everything he needed to do, but now he's walking over, and so I'm going to assist him with his language based on whatever he's interested in.